All right, so most of the videos where we're dealing with the sandbox, we're going to be looking at specific parts of Tailwind, specific classes, and so on. This video is going to be a bit different because I want to just talk a little bit about the utility-first fundamentals that Tailwind uses. And we talked a little bit about this in the beginning of the course, where Tailwind is a utility framework versus something like Bootstrap, which is much higher level, where you have classes like alert, navbar, card, etc. Where with Tailwind, you're dealing with smaller utility classes that really only have one CSS property that you're working with. All right, so the definition in the documentation of utility-first fundamentals is building complex components from a constrained set of primitive utilities. So I want to give you an example of that. So we're going to look at utility-first index.html, and we can go to that over here, the first link. And what we have is an alert box with just regular HTML and CSS. So if we look at the HTML, we have a class of alert, and then we have a bunch of other alert classes, an image, some text, and then we have some styling up here. Now what I'd like to do is recreate this with Tailwind and kind of, as I'm doing it, talk about the process, like what I'm thinking in my head. And I think this is how you can really see the benefits of Tailwind. All right, so before we do that, let's look at the exact styling and properties that we're using here. So we have an alert class with display flex. So this is a flex box. All the items in it are flex items, and they're arranged in a row. And I do expect you to have at least some base knowledge in CSS and Flexbox. The max width of this is 24 rem. It's margin 0 auto, so we're pushing it to the middle with auto on the left and right margin. Padding, we have a border radius for rounded corners, background color white, and we have a box shadow. And then we're sizing the logo's height and width. And then the body, we have some margin and padding. And then the title and message have, some color and font size and all that. So let's go down here and let's create this exact same thing with Tailwind. And I don't expect you to know all of these classes that I'm using. I'm going to just briefly say what they do and what I'm doing, but we're going to go over all of these in detail. All right, so first off, we know it's a flex box, so let's add the class of flex. I want align items center, so there's a class called items center. I want to add some padding all around, so we'll do P6. And the width of the container is pretty small, so we'll do a max width of small, okay, max width SM. And then we want to move it to the middle, so MX-auto, that's margin on the X-axis, so left and right. And then the background is white, so we'll use BG white. And we want the corners rounded, so rounded we'll do XL, so there's different sizes you can use. Same with shadow, we'll go ahead and add shadow LG for large. And then the space on the X-axis, so basically the space between items, we'll do 4. And these sizes, I'll talk more about what these are later on. So that gives us a container. If I save that, now I do want to move it down a little bit, so what we can do is add margin top, and we'll do 12 to push that down. Now the inner elements, we know we have an image, so let's add that. That's going to be up one level in assets, and then image, and then it's called warning SVG. Okay, and then if I save that, that's going to be pretty big, so let's size that with just a couple classes. We'll do width, so W12, and we'll do H12. And again, if you don't know what these sizes are, I'll be going over that. Now the second item in the Flexbox is going to be a div with the two text, basically like a heading and a subheading. So let's do a class for the first one of text XL, which will make the font a little bigger. The weight will do font medium, and then I want it to be black, so we'll say text black. And then we'll say, are you sure? Save that, all right, and then directly under that we'll use a paragraph, and let's just make it a little lighter, so we'll do text slate with a shade of 500. And I think we're going to be talking about colors next. And let's put the text in here, so you are about to delete a post, save that. Okay, and we have the same, basically the same thing. All right, and we didn't have to write any CSS. We didn't have to spend time thinking of class names, and you'll see a lot of weird class names like alert logo wraps, things like that, even more complicated. We didn't have to, or we don't have to worry about our CSS file getting too big. We don't have to. We have less of a chance of something breaking or something going wrong in our CSS. But the best part to me, in my opinion, is just how fast you can just test things out and build user interfaces, which almost eliminates the need for something like Figma or Photoshop to create your layouts. So for instance, I could just come in here and let's say I wanted to try a smaller padding. I could try P2. Maybe I want larger padding. I could try 12. Maybe I don't like any of those. And then we can make it a little wider. So instead of max width small, we could do max width large. That would make it wider. What else? Maybe we want to try different colors. There's different shades of colors. Shadow. So shadow large. Maybe we want more shadow. We can just do XL. Yeah, like that. Maybe I want to change the size of the image. We can make that bigger. Okay, maybe I don't like that. So you can just really quickly test out things and build user interfaces, which is in my opinion, the best thing about Tailwind. Because if you're using HTML and CSS, then of course you have to go up here and you have to mess with your classes. You have to create new classes. And even if you're using a framework such as Bootstrap, you have classes like Alert, which give you just a whole bunch of predefined styles. You know, with Tailwind, you can just create things on the fly and you can really customize it. And I can customize what 6 and P6 means or what XL means and how big this stuff is. You can customize all that, which is great. All right, so I just wanted to give you a visual representation and kind of my thought process of creating this so you can see the advantage of Tailwind.